Okay, my parts came in for my Springfield Armory pistol, and my rear sight assembly had fell apart. I called up Springfield Armory, and they were kind enough to send me a brand new rear sight assembly. So we're going to get in that today and have a look. Now this is not for people that are faint of heart. So here we go. Not faint of heart. All right. Look at this. We're going to zoom in on the parts. I'm going to first off show you the old parts and use them as a reference so you can kind of see what we're up against. See if I can get this right about there. I'm going to try to stay right within the frame. Now that is the rear side assembly. Now, like I say, if you are a coffee drinker or a nervous kind of a person, this is definitely not the place to get real nervous. You need to get everybody out of the house, everybody be quiet, put the dogs out, put the kids out, put the wife out, put everybody out. So I'm using this old one as a reference. It has a ball detent down in there that holds that screw in place. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how these parts are laid out. This is the rear side assembly, and this is the one that broke, but it'll still be a good reference. So there's the screw. This has a little wing on the top. That's your adjustable side assembly to raise it up and down. Underneath the hood, inside here, you will see, let me go ahead and see if I can zoom. I'm gonna give you as many details as I possibly can on this. Just forgive my jumping around because there's gonna be a little bit of that, part of the job. Let's see what we can do. Okay, I like details. This is the stuff you never seem to get on YouTube because people don't want to go into too many details. They like to get a gun and go out in the backyard and start slinging lead. So, as you can see, on this rear side assembly, once you open the hood up, raise the rear sight, you've got two little shiny places for indentions. Looks like something has been riding in there. You've got two little holes here that look like cups, and that's where these springs go. So these springs, that's a spring, it is very small. It's like the front end springs on an Ant's pickup truck. So they go right there, and one right here. I think that will hold it in place, but I'm just gonna stick them in there for right now as a reference. So that's where those go. And then, I've got a whole set of Allens. These are small Allens. This is 1/16 of an inch. And here's what you got here. Once you get this in place, I'm gonna go ahead and pull those springs out. I just showing you where they go. This is dovetailed on the bottom. You can clearly see that. Let's see, double check. I'm gonna keep double checking. So make sure you get a reference. See the little dovetail there on the bottom? That's the dovetail, okay? Once that is inside the slots on the back of your rear slide, the back of the slide, then you can work on getting the set screws in there. Now, if you're taking the old one off, that's the first thing that you would do is get it stripped down. So you would take your screwdriver, pull that single screw out, get this, I call it under the hood, open, and then these little bitty set screws right here, looks like a piece of peppercorn. There's one there in a hole and one there in a hole. You'll see three holes there now. One of these holes is the one that your adjuster screw goes in, and your springs will make that ride properly. But anyway, that's the center hole right there. And that goes in that oddball hole, the one that's by itself. So that's your adjuster screw, goes in that center hole. And then these other two holes is where these small set screws are gonna go. So, here's what I did. I want to show you a little bit of victory that I had on this rig. This sight removal tool is called a VISO. Let's get this, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this all the way around so you can see the details on this. Let's see, we're gonna crank this guy down a little bit. See if I can get him down where you can see him. And we'll zoom back out some. Now, I want to tell you, this is not a real expensive tool, but if you are a person that likes to work on guns, you're doing your own work on guns, you need one of these, okay? So basically, you see here, it's got a screw on this side, and you're screwing a block in there to clamp the slide in place. It's got a black nylon block on it. You've got another one on this side, and that screws in to clamp on this side. If your slide is an unusual cut to it, like a SIG or something like that, it's got a step in it, they've got nylon blocks, so it'll slide in these dovetail to make it fit your gun. Then up top on here, you've got one that screws down a nylon block up top on the front of the slide to hold it in place. And let me get a flashlight. I want you to see as many of these details as you can. And the key with this, once you get all that in place, you've got to make it where this top piece right here, this is your adjuster, it's going to shift it. You've got to make that where it can move right and left. Now I put grease on these axles right here, some gun grease. Make sure that's well greased. And here's the problem with running these. You do have a bottom one right here, a bottom screw, it's a big plate, and you'll be kind of concerned that that's going to slide. Doesn't have nylon on it, but you can put a playing card in between there. But the key is to get all this the right height and get this slide as a fixed position. So it's clamped on the left, it's clamped on the right, it's clamped up top with this binder, and that rides forward of the sights. And once you get everything clamped, then you make sure that this part that's going to move is only touching your sights. Make sure it's not going to hit the top of your slide, because if you do, you're going to scratch that slide up bad. So once you get everything tightened, here's the problem with these kind of rigs. You need to have it screwed down to a big board. I've got this screwed down to a 4x4 post, and I've got a clamp in place here to hold that to the kitchen table. And I'm doing this in the air-conditioned living room. But here is the big problem that I run into. Those adjustments on this device are not, you cannot get them tight enough with your hands. And when I say adjustments, I'm referring to these knurled knobs right here. It looks like a place for your hand, and I end up using this tool right here. I use this nice German Knipex, and you get on it right there, and you go ahead and shower down. Don't get radical, but tighten it pretty tight. And again, you've got a nylon block in here that's going against your slide to keep from screwing your slide up. And then here on the far side, get on that and tighten that down as much as your nerves can handle. And the same thing up on the top. Go ahead and get a hold of that knurled knob and tighten it down. If you don't do that, if you don't get that slide totally fixed where it cannot float up and down, it can't go right and left, what'll happen is you start cranking on this to push your dovetailed rear sight off, it will cock that whole thing. Once it starts to cock, you won't get a good linear push and you will break something. So this is a good sight pusher. VISM is the brand name. Let's go ahead and look at the other side of it. You see on this side, we've got, you can clearly see if I can move this around a little bit more. Sorry for the interruption. But this is how you get detailed. You could have a professional camera crew, pretty girl, could be chasing this around, but right now this is what I got. So here you can see Springfield Armory, you got the slide there. You've got the nice, again, nylon crushing block, and that is just forward of your rear side assembly, pushing down on the steel part of the slide. You've got this wheel on the bottom that sets your height. And so what I did, this is my suggestion to you, is go ahead and start cranking that. Now you can put a 15mm wrench on this. I chose not to because I know me, I might get a little too carried away. So I use this. It does have a set screw in the center so that you can move this back and forth. But I turned it, and I turned it slowly, and it got a lot of pressure. And there was a certain point there where I heard a little pop. Well, that little pop was that rear side went ahead and broke loose. And after I got it to pop one time, then after that it was a good hard push, and it got a little easier and a little easier and a little easier until finally this whole rear side assembly came out in my hand. So I thought to myself, well, as long as it took me to get all of that in position to push the old one out, why not leave the pusher all set up, grease the new one, and go ahead and carefully put the dovetail into the slide and use the same tool to go ahead and push it back in. So that's what I've done. Now I'm gonna go ahead and start limbering stuff up and show you how this looks, okay? And then we'll put in the springs and the set screws to get that all set up properly. Next thing you know, we'll be able to put the gun together and do some shooting. So I'll be right back with you. Give me just a minute. Okay, I went ahead and got the slide out of it so you can look at this a little bit closer and you can see the adjustments. I'm gonna go ahead and break this down a little bit. Let's drop this on down in a linear fashion and get it where you can see what I got going on inside there. Okay, so almost there. Look at that. So see, you've got an adjuster here, and this moves that nylon block over. That moves that closer and closer. You can move that into the gun, into the slide. You've got this one that moves into the slide, and this bottom wheel sets your height of the slide. And then this top wheel right here, the one up here, let me go ahead and get that involved. This top wheel right here will clamp the top of your slide off. You can see that coming down. And so you really need to take your time, put your slide in there, and get everything set just right to where that slide is clamped every which way you can get it clamped. And then make sure your traveling part, this pair of jaws that's up inside here, right here, this jaw and this jaw, make sure they are lined up with your sight as deep as you can get on that rear sight. And then when you start turning this, it will move that. Now this gets in the way a little bit, so what I can do, like I say, you can take your set screw and pull that out, and you can put a 15mm wrench, socket wrench on that, and you could do it that way. But now you see how that's set up. Now let's go into the details of the slide and see what we have to do to get it ready to tune. All right, so we're gonna jack this right back up. Jack this up and go down here and get some more details. And I'm gonna try to turn this for you. This is the old sight. These are the old parts. Looks like about the size of a peppercorn. Here is the new sight assembly. So we're gonna try to zoom in on that new sight assembly and let you see some nice details on that. Let me get my camera all locked down good. And I see why people don't do this detail stuff, because it's requires a lot of patience, okay? So there's the rear sight assembly. I'm gonna try to get that as detailed as I can for you, all right? And a little jumping around, back up about right there. I think that's about as good as I can do. So I'll leave that in place so you can see it. So here's what you gotta do. Step number one, leave all that in place right there. Take your screwdriver, try to find one that fits that slot very well. This one seems to fit okay, and that's got a ball detent on it. What you want to do is take that screw all the way out of the picture, okay? I'm going to do this very gently. This is where I'm going to approach it like a surgeon. I'll set that screw right there. Open up the hood and have a look around in there. And you'll notice there are no parts inside there. So I have checked this, and this dovetail is basically equal on the slide right and left. So we're going to leave that alone. We're not going to fool with that. We're going to get this little bitty guy here. That is a 1/16. We're going to break out the brand new factory parts. Notice I have no dogs, no little kids, no babies. I'll go now. Good night in the morning. See that? It went right down the hole. So those got some kind of little finish on them. I'm going to try my metric one and see if it fits any better. It does fit a little bit better. They may have switched on me. Okay, this metric one is like a surgeon. So it's a 1.5mm. See if we can get that to go down the hole, and I did. Wowee. Love it when a plan comes together. Now I'm going to feel this and make absolutely sure that fits, feels a little loose, so we'll swap back over to our other Allen 1/16 and see if I can get that to tighten. That will not go down the hole. 1.5 millimeters. See if it'll go down in there. Feels pretty good. I'm going to tighten it a little bit. Back it off. Learned that from a machinist years ago. And then tighten it up again. Switching over to the T-handle part and just snug it down. I'm going to stop right there just in case that's not exactly right. And the same thing with this one. Snug it till it's tight, back it up just a notch, hit it again, and you'll notice it'll go a little farther. And that's good. That seems to be good and tight. Okay, so those are tight. We got them in there. And there's no reason to have to worry about them. They could never come out because they're going to be captured. So now we're going to put our little springs in there. These springs are going to go in these holes. These are pretty stout little springs. There. I don't know if those are going to stay for me, so I'm going to say they will. I'm going to close this hood on this real careful. Try to hold both springs at the same time. And we're going to turn this over so gravity will keep those springs. Now watch this. I got them upside down. I'm going to double check them, make sure the springs are straight in their hole. All right, we're going to double check it. They seem to be straight. I'm going to slowly close it and see what they feel like. Okay, they went in their cup, so that's good. They went in the cup and it feels good and springy. Okay, so you can see that hopefully. Let me double check my camera. Make sure I'm not leaving you all out in the dark. And you're in good shape. Let's back this up just a skosh. Get it right there, dead center on my grid. So now here's what we're going to double check. We've got our set screws set. We've got the rear sight in the center of the slide. We check our tension on that. Feels good. Both springs are in place. I'm not going to open it again because those springs may try to run away. I'm going to set up my light. This is a nice LED light. Set this up this way. Maybe you can see a little bit better. I don't know if that'll let me do that or not. Let's get something in front of it. There we go. So now I got that like that. Double check my camera one more time. Okay, we're good to go. So now I'm going to come in with this adjuster screw. This is the one you'd be adjusting to do your rear sight assembly. We'll drop it in place. That's a big fat boy. He has no problems. Come in with this super Linux screwdriver and see if we can get that to thread up. I'm going to push it down where he has no resistance. Look at that bad boy go. That's feeling nice. And now what I want to do, run it in. Hear that? It's got those nice, it's got a little ball detent on it. Now I don't want to bottom it out, so I'm going to leave it about halfway. So what I'm going to do, don't know how the adjustment's going to come out on that, but we'll leave that about half. Now I'm going to go ahead and lay this slide over, and we're going to check this one and make sure it will adjust. This is a good size screwdriver for this job, seems to be. You probably could use a small electrical screwdriver if it would fit. This one seems to fit good, and it's got that perfect kind of jaw that you have for this application. And I'm going to get one more smaller screwdriver for that one, because that one's giving me a... All right, going in with a precision, a little bit thinner screwdriver blade, and see if that will turn. That thing. Okay, so what I learned on this is this particular screw is very tight. So you got to make sure your screwdrivers run down in there good, and it will turn, but it is very tactile, very tight. You don't want your bit to slip, so you just take your time with it. And it's probably because it's brand new, and it's got a little bit of oil grease on it, so it's working fine. It's just very tedious, and you don't want to use the wrong size screwdriver on that. This is not really a one for guns, for gunsmithing, but it does have the type of bit that I wanted, which is that nice flat bit on the tip, just like you would use in gunsmithing. So I'm pretty happy with that overall. And this one on the top, let me double check it, make sure we're good on it. There's that top one, get it in the center of the screen. I'm gonna check it one more time and see what it feels like. We don't want any stripped out screws, so we want to try to keep your angle good and zero. And just check this. Hear that? It has a nice feel to it. Those just have a ball detent on them. So what you need to do, make sure your spring is working. Like I say, I'm gonna leave that about center. The next thing is to start putting some lead on a target. We're gonna start at about 7 yards. Let's zoom this out so you can see what I've got. So there's the rear sight assembly. It's in place. It got a little bit crazy today. It's definitely not for the faint of heart, but there it is. It's installed. And let's zoom in. Let's see how nice that thing looks. This is called an LPA, but I really think that LPA is the people that make it. You can see that it's spring loaded there. So you can see the movement, 2 heavy springs in there, little bitty squatty bodies, but they are definitely stout. So there's that. There's no spring activity right and left, but you can see the little, I'll try to use my thing as a pointer here. You can see there is a ball detent right there. And that keeps that sight, see how it's got little ridges cut in it. And that makes it, when you turn your screwdriver, it stops at that ball. So the recoil of the gun does not move that around. This one has got the same setup. Zoom in here on. So you can see right there, there is a little ball detent right there. This is not something that comes out, it's part of the side assembly, but when you turn that, it's got the same little cuts in there. They're just smaller, and it will keep your adjustment right and left. And this is labeled. It's got a little mark right there that tells you which way left is. So as you're turning this, this moves your point of impact. So it will move wherever your bullet's hitting on the paper. Every time you turn it a little bit, it'll start to move it. And if you're up close, it takes a lot of clicks for that to move. Right now, I've got the whole assembly. Let's zoom that back out. I put the whole assembly so that it basically is centered on the back of the gun. It may not be perfect, but it is close enough. The overall assembly, not just the adjustable part. So it's definitely close enough. I checked the gap on both sides, and that's, let's see if I can get this light to help us here. I've got that in a magnetic situation. You can clearly see here on the side, there's a little gap right there where that dovetail of the rear sight went in, left a little gap on the slide, and we have a little gap on this side. It may be a little less. It looks very similar. You could get a little more scientific with that and measure that exact, but definitely I would rather have a device like this than try to do that with a punch. I definitely would not want to do that. Get you a nice assembly like this. Notice on the top of that, it has an arrow that's showing you how that needs to be with the front of the slide. So when you put that slide in there, that's showing you, this little arrow right here is showing you need to put your slide in like that and go through there. And I've got that down right now, but anyway, that would fit in there. In this case, I think I had to come in from the back side, and that made it where you could work on it. So they do prefer it that way, because what's going to happen is this front clamp right here has got to be able to clamp its nylon block right down on the front of your slide. And what I did is I adjusted this and slid that in until I could feel it butt up against the rear sight, and then moved it out just a skosh, and then really clamped it down tight using those Nipix miniature channel locks, and showered down on that with that nylon block. It didn't scratch the gun at all, but it holds it really tight there. These frame rails are going down on that flat down on the bottom there. Let's see if I can get my light. You can see right there, it has a wheel on the bottom. See the wheel right there? This wheel sets your height for your whole slide. And like I say, once you get it clamped in there, you don't have to worry about this. I think it is a nylon or something, but you don't have to worry about that sliding. Nothing's going to move here because this has got it clamped, this has got it clamped, clamped here with this jaw, clamped here with this jaw, and the only thing you're actually going to be moving is this this pusher here. Now right now that needs to be turned in so you can see this in motion. And so you can see that. That is your pusher. That top piece there that you see in motion is made out of steel, and it doesn't have any rubber jaws. They're rounded, there's no rough edges on them, but it's made to go against a metal rear sight. And like I say, I greased it real good. And you could take this steel handle out and put it on this end if you needed to. It's movable, but this one definitely is set up for a 15mm socket wrench, and then you could get real precise with it instead of having to use that on it. So notice how I've got this mounted. I just use a nice deck screw here, put one deck screw in at a 45-degree angle, mounted that to a 4x4 post. I did the exact same thing on this side, deck screw, 45-degree angle, and then the whole rig is clamped to my kitchen table, and you can see that right there. So the rear side assembly is all put together on the gun now, and the next step is to put the gun together. And it's a good principle, make sure you keep all your old parts, keep your old rear side assembly, that screw, those two little bitty springs, and the two peppercorn size set screws. I got them all bagged up now. That's unusual, I usually lose everything. Let's see if we can put this gun together real quick. I'll zoom this out so you can see it. There we go, all zoomed out. We'll slap it back together and make it be a happy 45. So, step one, we're gonna let the slide sit like that. We're gonna bring a nice match grade barrel on board. Bring him in just like that in the rear. Get him all the way. Nice barrel bushing. Put that right there like that. That is a very tight fit on this gun. This is a range officer, so it's set up for competition use. And then we'll put us a nice recoil spring. Let the half moon ride on the barrel right there. Now that assembly is put together. Roll it over very carefully. Put it together like that. Half moon right there at the little square notch. Double check my barrel length, make sure it looks good. Barrel length is stabbed. I always like to do this, make sure I captured it. We will put this right in the little hole without making the idiot mark up the side of the gun. And I did put a new over strength, or let's see what they call that, Factory Plus spring in there from Wilson Combat, because I like my safety to be very snickety. It needs to be real snickety, so that my safety doesn't come off while I'm in the car. And I got that bolted on the side of my hip in a little Yagi holster. I want to make absolutely sure nothing moves, so everything feels good. We check that sight. The safety, it's nice and crisp now. You can see that. Dog chewed on my finger today. I didn't like that. Nice and crisp. Make sure that this trigger will still go bang. It does. And check the rear sight. Make sure it's razor sharp. Will make me bleed if I need to. And it is spring loaded. So everything looks good. Front sight looks good. Got a good notch in the rear. Everything looks very nice. I just have to get out there and get after it. Have to do some sight in. Here's a good target right here. We'll take the old paper plate out there, throw it up with some duct tape, 7 yards, and see where I hit when I aim dead center on that plate. So thank y'all for watching. I hope you learned something from this. Remember the name of this company, on this sight pulling machine is a VISM. So there's your little box. It comes with all kinds of doodads in there, little plastic things to adapt to different types of slides. So I hope that's helpful to you. And if you learned something, saved you a few dollars, click on that little $2 super thank you, and I can buy me some more coffee. So thanks again for watching. Tap the like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon to do some shooting. Over and out for now. Well, I decided to go ahead and shoot that real quick and see what kind of results I could get. So here's what we got. The first 2 shots fell right here. I had a piece of black tape. This is at 10 yards. So I had a piece of black tape as my aiming point, a little small square. You can see that right there. So there's a square piece of black tape. First 2 shots, double tap at 10 yards. That's looking good. The only reason they're off that much is me wiggling around. And then I went ahead and turned that sight 180, which was about, I'd say about 8 clicks, because they're pretty small micro miniature clicks. And on the very next shot, I made a pull. You can count that as a dummy. Don't count that at all. That was me pulling a nice light 2.25 pound trigger. And the rest of these, let's see, that was an 8-round gun. So 1, 2, 3. The next 5 shots are in that hole right there. So 5 shots in the same hole at 10 yards. That's not outstanding as far as accuracy goes, but I will say this much, that sight is definitely sighted in. Now, as I get out to 25 yards, it may need a little bit more touch up, but we're roughed in, and I did not have to adjust the rear sight to the right and to the left. I just centered it up on the gun, and that's good enough for now. So thought you'd enjoy seeing the results. Kind of compressed that today. Had a very busy day, but if you have to change out your rear sights on a gun like that, keep this in mind. That is the tool for the job right there. And it is a brand name is VISM. And make sure you get that thing bolted down solid, because the more solid that's bolted down, the easier your job will be. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Over and out for now.